So, if you guys could maybe talk a little bit about how you got interested in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, that would be great. Maybe where your career has gone, and also how you can encourage other young women to be interested in the fields that you've chosen.
Want to do a row thing? I'll speak to this. So, I was the president of the Business and Entertainment Society of Villanova. If that's still a thing, I don't know. But it is awesome. That makes me really happy. Cool. So I always wanted to go into like an entertainment and media type atmosphere. I thought that's a lot of fun. Who doesn't like watching YouTube videos or, turning on the TV? And I actually was trying to figure out what to do with my marketing degree from Villanova. Obviously, you can do a lot of different things. And I was networking, interviewing at different companies, and I met someone from BuzzFeed and kind of had the conversation going. Was really, pushy with that resume, but ended up in this job and a lot more techie than I ever envisioned. And I think that's such a good thing because we are going in that direction where everything's online. Like, Danielle had mentioned, it's just ever growing, ever changing. Like ever since I started BuzzFeed, which was less than a year ago, we have new products, a new pricing model, new ways of doing things and keeping up. So it's always changing and you always have to be on top of those changes too.
For me, I was always interested in math. I was good at math. I went to a high school that I think really drove students toward engineering. And while I liked the problem-solving aspects of that, I felt like I wanted to be in a role where I was meeting with people every day. I was able to combine that math science area with the more people-oriented side of myself. So when I came to Villanova freshman year, I wasn't sure if business was for me. You get an exposure to a lot of different things. But I found that management information systems and business analytics ended up fitting really well with that. So I'm able to be intellectual and curious and sometimes moderately logical or mathematical, but I'm still on the client site 4 days a week, and building relationships is a big part of my job as well. So for me, it was a good way to bring the two together. And I think growing up, I didn't know that you could do that. I remember people saying, are you a math science person or are you a languages person? And I've been really happy to find that you can do both.
That's good. It's a good transition here. So I went the opposite way, but now I'm in consulting as well because I realized that a lot later. So like I said, I was a computer science major. I got into programming when I was in high school because, like Daniel mentioned, MySpace was a thing, and my friends needed custom MySpace layouts and Tumblr layouts, if you guys are familiar with Tumblr too. And I thought, I really like this. I'm going to figure out how to do it and build them myself. I sold them for $3. I thought it was really awesome. But I liked MySpace, I liked Tumblr, and I just wanted to make it my own. And that's been something that really drove me throughout my computer science career, was finding things that I really like and how they work and how I can make them better. So I started my career at BNY Mellon as a developer, but really missed the social aspect of it. I think I have an ounce of personality, and most traditional developers, I would say, struggle with that. It's changing, but it's a struggle. And so I felt really trapped in that role personally. So I transitioned into a consulting role where now I get to build cool products for our clients. I'm on client sites 4 days a week as well. But it is taking things that I like and getting to actually build them and see them through. And so I would say that was something that really drove me into STEM and to figure things out, like exactly how they work.
So I kind of have a different angle than everyone else. I was actually a food marketing major down the road, undergrad at Joe's. I had maybe like 3 computer classes the entire time I was at St. Joe's, and I was going to be a food marketing major. And it wasn't until I came to Villanova and I actually I was Dr. Bill, I don't know if anyone is Dr. Bill, but I was his grad assistant for a while. And the more I worked with him, the more I realized, hey, I actually like this. This might be something I can do. And he actually suggested that along with my marketing concentration, I get a concentration in MIS, and I haven't looked back since. And I actually really love the technology industry. I didn't think I would ever be there, but I'm really glad I'm there today.
Yeah, so I wanted to write for television news. So again, very similar to Danielle in broadcasting. And had no idea that I would ever do this. Google was just a search site when I graduated from Villanova. Didn't do ads. Yahoo is the leader in search and in the digital space. And basically what ended up happening was I was working for a business-to-business magazine company, doing magazine layout, print production, working with advertisers, and the editorial staff to make sure that the ads looked nice next to the editorial content. And there were just layoffs after layoffs every single quarter because print soon became a dying industry. And I had a bunch of friends who were doing online, and I was like, you know, you're like essentially doing the same thing I am, but I'm doing it on print and you're doing it on digital. Like, what's kind of involved here? And you know, you go to the bar and you're talking shop a little bit, and then realize, okay, like I think I could do this. And you know, networking's really important. It so happened that somebody that I worked for at my internship at CBS News in New York was put into this new role to grow out this entire new digital media group at CBS. Said, would you be interested? Went in for the formal interview. They said, you know what, we need somebody that has a little bit more experience than you. And I said, you know what, cool, like, that's fine, I get it. 3 months later, okay, we have a more junior position. Do you want it? Yes. Never look back. And my role evolved, went from CBS, went to Electronic Arts, which is a really cool gaming company. And then from there, got recruited to Google as a technical account manager. Okay, technical account manager, sure. For this new product that they were launching, and that was it. You just kind of learn on the fly, use your network, read a lot. You can Google everything now, so it really helped me.
I guess for me, when I originally came to Villanova, well, I hadn't really, took a while for me to kind of pick business. Originally, I was going to do either teaching, engineering, or neuropsychology, and then I landed with business. And so then within business, I kind of was like, okay, I liked accounting. And I was going to be an accounting and marketing major, and then, you know, you go through freshman and sophomore year, and I definitely had the accounting 150 focus just because you have to get all those credits in. And it was sophomore year, I think, when, is it SIT? I kind of forget the name of it now, but where you have to, you know, do kind of an MIS like course, and they teach you about what MIS is. And it was, you know, I remember sitting in class, it was at 8:30 in the morning, so it's like, okay, half awake. But it sounded really interesting. I kind of liked how it touched every base, and it was kind of like this complex tree, you know, like from Avatar or whatever, that like mother tree or whatever. And then, but you know, I still stuck with accounting because I was an accounting and management information systems major, so I declared both. But still very accounting. Was gonna go did the winter internship. Worked at Ernst & Young. Was gonna go in my head to Ernst & Young. And then I kind of hit a point where I was like, you know, I've been so accounting focused, I really kind of wanted to explore, and I never had the opportunity to really have a technical internship. So I said, okay, you know, like let's check this out, let's see how this goes. And if, you know, maybe I want something technical but not too technical, because I took a programming class and it's like, you know, you have a 10-page paper and you gotta find that one period that you missed in the whole 10-page paper. And it took me like 20 years, and I was like, I just, no. So I looked for a summer internship at SAP, and I was like, let's just give it a shot, let's see how it goes. I applied, I think, for 12 positions, got rejected for maybe 7 of them, maybe 8. And I was like, nope, still gonna persist because this is something I really want, that technical knowledge. And then I finally got an offer from my team currently. And that was what I did during my last semester at Nova. I did worked part-time, I went to school. And through that, I was just kind of able to get more hands-on and technical and kind of really understand like what we learned in the classroom and how it really applies in the real world. And I just fell in love, and then they offered me a job on the team, coming up to a year, and I said, you know, I had to make a decision. Because in my head, I was going to go back to Chicago, I was going to work for Ernst & Young, I was going to go with accounting, and this was total 180 for me. I said I was never going to live in Philly. I was either going to do New York or go to Chicago, and now I live in Philly. So it's just kind of, I think, being open to new opportunities and possibilities and just kind of going with what makes you happy at the time. So that's kind of what I followed.
Great. All right, so continuing on the same path, focusing on your careers, could you talk a little bit about who is your best mentor throughout your career and what's the best advice they have given you?
I think for me, it's a sad story, but it's kind of funny, and especially because someone from Google's here. So I was at a Women in Computer conference. It's the Grace Hopper celebration. It's the largest gathering of women in computing. Gone for a while. I was a senior here at Villanova. I had no idea what I was going to do. I had an interview at Google lined up. Had all this. So you interview at this conference, right? And I was like, okay, I have this Google interview, and for most technical positions, for developer positions, you actually have to code like on the spot, which if you ever try doing anything with someone watching you, like doing actual like food coding with someone watching you, is just as intimidating. Didn't go well. Not at all. Tears might have been shed after I left. Forgot my Google backpack that they were giving out to all the interviewers. The guy was nice enough to come and give it to me, but I can't say I really wanted it. But I was walking out down this conference. So this conference is huge. It's in a convention center. And they have ice cream out because women in tech. It was a great time. And I was getting ice cream, and this woman looked at me and she was like, "Are you okay? What happened?" And I was like, you know when someone asks you what happened and you're upset and you just like go. So I was like, I'm never gonna get a job. And she was like, hold on, like relax, you'll get a job. Don't worry, you'll be okay. Have you heard of BNY Mellon? So she was there with the company BNY Mellon, and I was like, no, like what do you do? She's like, let me tell you a little bit about myself. So we got to talking. She completely sold me on the job because I ended up working there after school. I ended up actually working for her. She was there when I needed her then, and I didn't even know it, and she's continued to be one of my biggest mentors because she does have that technical brain, but is very, very, a very effective communicator, and that was something that I find is very few and far between in the tech industry, is people who are technical but can communicate it to a broader audience, and that was something that I knew there was a huge gap there. So I think she's been my biggest mentor, and it's so important to find those. I don't know if you'll find it while trying to get ice cream, but do keep your eyes peeled, and probably when you're least expecting to find it, I think you'll be okay.
So for me, I don't think a particular person comes to mind, but just backing up a little bit, like before you go to college, you kind of, for me, I was a little insecure about, what classes I'm going to take, how to meet new friends, how to go through your career and eventually get a job, like you're at Villanova Business School, like you want a good job. So I kind of came in and became a business school ambassador. I was a peer advisor, president of a society, and really just immersed myself in the Villanova business culture. And I think just, Brenda's one of the people, like Michelle, like, all these people at the Clay Center and your professors and just like your student body, like I'm gonna start crying. It's like one of those things. But it was one of those things where I think every experience that I went through, and just if you meet the people that build you up, and as women, like Danielle said, build each other up and make those connections with people, because it's those bits of advice that you can give out to people, even if you do bad on a test or you don't get that internship, like those people that build you up and realize that you can do stuff. Because hey, I didn't have my job right when I graduated. I was still figuring things out. It's not going to always be smooth sailing. It's not going to be, I have my dream job right out of college. But it's those people that make lasting memories, that give you good advice, that you can depend on and kind of take that with you. it's what builds you into, I forget the original question, but it just it builds you into the person that you want to be going forth in your career. And I think for me, it was just, now I remember, it was just Villanova as my mentor. And I really think, as cliche and corny as that sounds, I think that community aspect was so present in VSB. And you just have to find the right people that will build you up and turn you into the person and the businesswoman that you want to be moving out into the real world.
Yeah, so I've had a much longer career than my fellow panelists. So I don't have one person, but I've really tried to draw on something from everyone, not even direct managers, but other people that I've worked with, styles, how they are stylistically, and draw on the positives and the negatives. My first job ever, I had a female manager, and she was horrific. It's not to say that I look back and say, oh wow, out of all of the managers I've had, she was horrific. Like, I knew then that she was horrible. But I learned a lot of what not to be, what not to do as a people manager. And as the course of my career has changed, I'm a fairly new mom. We'll have my second in January. So everything that I had done in my career up to 2 years ago was as a single woman, dating, then married, and then as a mom, it was like, oh my gosh, how do I do both? And that was a real struggle that I had in the last 2 years. How do I manage my job and my career that's very important to me, but also being the best mom, being available to my child, to my husband, and struggling with that. So I've really run the gamut and have used resources and other very strong women to, to bear my soul to, right? That personality, you have to be you, right? So it's you're giving a little bit about yourself and showing that you're human to try to extract more of what you would hopefully get from somebody else. So I think, the mentoring is very big. This circle that you have with you is very big, but it has to be reciprocal. It's not just one person who's going to help you. It's what you can also give to them as well. And I think one part of the question was best piece of advice, right? Okay, so I did remember. Mom brain is the thing. But it's interesting because I think the biggest piece of advice, and something that I was struggling with again at Google, growing within Google, and then being a new mom, is growth, right? And trajectory and promotion. And one of the things that was mentioned to me is that your line from when you start your first job to your career growth of where it is that you want to be. If it's CTO of a company, CMO, of like one of the biggest marketing companies, wherever your path is, it's not going to be a straight line. You're going to go up and down, and there's reasons for it. I went from people manager, individual contributor, people manager, individual contributor, because I changed where it was that I was going. I started in print, took a step back, took a pay cut to get to digital. Moved to a different team, moved to a different company, had people reporting to me, changed. Went back to individual contributor because I wanted to constantly grow and evolve and learn different facets of the business and the things that kept me motivated. So in a way, I followed that advice before I even knew it, that your career path and your trajectory is very long, and it's not always going to be a straight line up to the end goal of where it is that you want to be for a career.
To touch on the advice portion you mentioned, I actually had a conversation with one of my good mentors last night about some stuff going on at work and transitioning, since it is a relatively new transition for me from college to work. And one really great piece of advice she had for me, because being a more junior person, I felt nervous about raising a couple of concerns. And she recommended presenting it as how can we work on this, what advice do you have, instead of just complaining about the problem, really approaching it from a problem solving point of view. And for me, having mentors who are able to give feedback like that seems small, but makes a big difference in terms of how you're able to voice your opinions in a way that's more likely to be reciprocated. I thought that was really outstanding advice.
With that too, asking with one of the greatest things I've ever learned is asking with confidence, and having that authority of yourself to know that you deserve to ask these types of questions. So going from a purely technical role into consulting, I had no idea what I was doing. Like never was client facing before. I went from a purely technical role to a very like social strategy type role, and I had no idea what I was doing, but having the confidence to ask and figure out what I was doing was great. So I got brought there for a reason. So I run a digital team, which is crazy because I'm 25 and I have people that report to me that when she was talking about ageism, I was like, that is my life right now. But having the confidence, in managing them, but also asking the right questions to to mentors and to leaders. They want to help, and if you find those good ones, just being confident in your questions will make them more apt to answer more confidently. So I think that that's something will be helpful.
And I guess kind of building off of that, so my mentor now at work, I love her. Her name's Petra, and I was instantly intrigued because I was like, "Oh, that's an exotic name," and I was like, "I've never heard of that name." And she's German, and originally from Germany, but now lives in the U.S., which means she's completely different than I am. I'm maybe a little bit more bubbly, and Germans are very blunt, get to the point, very logical, and I was just kind of, I guess, attracted to the 180 that she is in some ways to me. And I work with her, and I just said, hey, at one point I just, she's a doctor, she has a PhD in physics, and her undergrad was in chemistry or vice versa or something like that. So she comes from a very science background, whereas I come from business. So we have different ways of thinking. So I kind of reached a point where I said, hey, Petra, would you be my mentor? And she was ecstatic. And ever since then, it's been kind of nice because I think one way and she thinks another way, and it's kind of nice to have, to bounce ideas off of. And one of the, kind of going off of what you said, is one of the advice that she gave me is you're the CEO of your own career. So if you want something, you have to ask for it. You really have to persist in it. But if you're going to ask, one way that she was saying, if you want a promotion, you don't have to say, I need a promotion. Just say, I would like a promotion. How would you suggest, where am I at now? Kind of, and then how do we get there? And kind of make it more of a conversation and not more of, I feel like I need a promotion, give it to me now, kind of making it a conversation, and here's what we kind of want, how are we going to get there, and working together with your manager.
Yeah, so one totally sidebar thing is nonverbal communication, but especially written communication. And I'm totally blanking on the reference, but it's a fairly recent article that women write very differently than men. We think more stylistically. We can tend to be a little bit more long-winded, and if you actually get any emails from very high levels, they're very short, very sometimes it's like, wow, they didn't even say hi to me. They don't have time for hi. It's not you, it's them, but it's effective, right? So revamping how it is that you would necessarily write something to just be very short and sweet, and please do not use the word just.
Just like to say, do the
just
challenge.
Just checking in. Sound good? Thoughts? No. You're writing an email. You have thoughts. You have opinions. You have smart ideas. You don't need validation from anybody for them to say, oh yeah, this sounds good. Or my thoughts on this? Oh, no, this sucks. I don't care what your thoughts are. These are mine, and this is how I want to approach it. And so, it's stylistically thinking about how you can hone in and be very direct, not super fluffy, and get your point across, that these are your opinions and why they're valid, and why the person who's reading your email, because I pretty much joke that all I do every day is email, that they understand your point and are bought into what it is that you want to accomplish.
Try and go 1 week without like limiting your use of the word just in email, or I mean even text messages. It's very challenging.
Alrighty. So we're gonna just kind of change pace a little bit and focus more on what it's like being a woman working. And so, have you encountered any difficulties as a woman in the workplace? And if so, what are these specific difficulties and how have you kind of dealt with them over time?
So I think at my company, at QVC, they've had women in technology since the beginning. I think I'm somewhat different maybe than some other people because I've never really had to like pave the way. I've done some things, but I have a lot of gratitude to the women who have come before me, who've paved the way for me.
Where to start? That's not true. So, I mean, even just here at Villanova, right, I was a computer science major. I was one of 4 girls in my graduating class, which was a good time. But we founded, I was the first president and founder of Women in Computer Science Club, which I know is still a thing, which is awesome. But I think at the workplace, it's never, I am lucky in the fact that I haven't had anything directly happen to me. You hear about all of this stuff happening like at Uber and all the, on Silicon Valley. I've never fortunately, had any of that happen to me at work. But it's little things. On my performance review, I got told that I was too social for my role. I got told that my personality was inhibiting my performance. And this is someone telling me this to my face. And you take those things and you're like, oh yeah, okay. But then if you actually think about it, that's really terrible to hear that your personality is affecting your job performance when your job performance, I was coding. So things like that. I know, it's laughable, but it's also not. It is something to be very mindful of. Finding like we've all been saying, like finding that support system is absolutely imperative. So I worked at a bank. So I was in financial services, which is pretty male-dominated. I was then in technology in financial services, which is very, very male-dominated. But it really is about being that advocate for other women, but also for yourself. And when I got told that my personality inhibited my performance, I took it for what it was. And then that didn't stop me, though, from being myself. And I think that that's what's gotten me where I am right now is being myself. But it's the unfortunate truth that we have a lot of work to do. And it's events like these, it's events like Women in Tech events that I'm sure all of our companies are a part of that are really, really helpful just to even get the awareness out that things like this still happen.
For me, at one of my internships, I attended a happy hour where I was the only woman. And given the question, you can tell that probably didn't go well. So there were a lot of inappropriate comments made, comments to me, comments about other women, and I really wish I had addressed it differently, but at the time I was in shock that this was happening. I had just turned 21, so being able to go to a work happy hour was a new thing for me, and the next day seeing guys around the office was uncomfortable, and I really wish that in the moment I had said something and just been like, whoa, we work together, or made a comment that was maybe even funny, but showing that there's a line and you crossed it. They were joking like, oh, you might, you don't work for HR, do you? You're not going to turn us in. And that would have been a great time for me to say, no, but you really shouldn't be doing that if you're concerned I work for HR. So, different things like that I wish I had handled differently. And I have to say, after that, I attended happy hours for many other companies, and it turned out to be a very enjoyable experience. So it's not always like that.
Thank God,
That was really, being the first happy hour I attended at an office, I think it set a bad precedent, but I've never had anything like that again. But I think when stuff does happen that makes you feel uncomfortable and you don't quite know how to handle it, the fact that you're feeling uncomfortable probably means that it's a legitimate feeling and something is wrong, even if you feel like maybe you're inexperienced or you want to come off as more mature. So I wish I had said something to them. And I think when you say something to someone and confront them directly, they're more likely to be embarrassed and take it down a notch versus talking to someone else about it or just feeling awkward.
That's tough. Thank you for sharing that. I mean,
I'm trying
you know,
to
for all the, it's hard. And for all like the college students, like happy hours, like the adults, like that's our cool things, like don't ruin that. But yeah, I think for me, like, you know, I went into BuzzFeed and I'm like, everyone's gonna be super cool and like a feminist and like love me because I'm a feminine, I'm cool, I don't know. But it actually, so I'm in the business and tech, thank you. I'm in the business and tech sector. And actually, being in business and being in tech, you're surrounded by a lot of people who aren't going to share those ideologies that you share, even if you're at the same company. And unfortunately, I had a similar circumstance where someone was rude to me at work, like inappropriate stuff and you know, other details of that nature, but I ended up having to go to HR. And I'm the kind of person where it's like, no, like, it's not gonna fly, don't mess with me. And it was very hard. Like, it was a very hard thing to do. I think being able to speak to that and confront a situation that happened is hard for females in general. So I had the support of my manager, my senior manager, my vice president, like everyone was on my side. They're the ones that told me to go. And it took some convincing, but I ended up speaking to it. HR was really receptive of that. And I think like the thing that I took from that was it was hard to not put some blame in myself. Maybe I'm too friendly, maybe I'm too nice to people, but you know, in those kind of situations, it's nothing that you do, it's nothing that Katie did, it's nothing that I did. It was just other people who don't share those Augustinian cultures that you share, or those morals that you share. They did not go to VSB, I can tell you that. But it's one of those things where it's hard, you have to do it, you have to stick up for yourself, being in a business atmosphere. But, you know, besides that, again, it's good to pick a company where you can see yourself working with those people. He was, you know, an anomaly. Everyone else is great. And then it's funny because I got the job and then I showed up to work and I was like, I see you people every single day, right? Like from like 9 to 6. Like this is me with you guys every day. And I still say that. I've been there for like 10 months. So like, Alyssa, like you've been working here. Like it's fine. We work together. But it is just, it's you want to pick a job where you can see yourself working with the people, and I think that goes to show with technology in general.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a set of challenges, and women in technology are a minority, and so sometimes I feel like you need to do things that prove that you can go to toe-to-toe, that there is a reason that you're on the team. I have unfortunately had varying degrees of bad situations happen to me, sexual harassment, one of which happened at Google. Literally my first day at Google, I was told in part why I was hired to the team had to do with my physical appearance. And from one male colleague, and at the time I was only the second person who was female on my team. And a few months later at an annual sales conference, this same individual did something really, really terrible and actually had the audacity to ask if I would speak to HR on his behalf to support him and say that he would never do this kind of behavior. And at which point I said, I would absolutely love to talk to HR about your behavior. He got fired the next day. And, you know, admittedly, right, I wish I had handled it differently straight away. But when this is literally your first day at a job and something happens, you say, okay, am I going to be that person who's, you know, making friends for the right reason or the wrong reason? And it puts you in a really bad position. And I struggled with what do I say, when do I say it. Meanwhile, my mom is a SVP of HR. So like I have a really good person to go to talk about this with, and still decided not to say anything. But I remember feeling guilt for what had happened a few months later, that then this person who did not work at the company, but this woman who was affected by what this person did, and I swore that if something like that ever happened again, I would not sit quietly. And I feel like this is ever present right now, given things that are happening, especially in Hollywood, and these women that are coming forward. The shaming that these women have not said anything before is horrible. There's always reasons why someone doesn't do what maybe they should do from an outside perspective. But after that happened, I swore that I would never go silent again. And thankfully, since then, there have not been any instances where I've had to actually say or do anything.
I guess for me, yes, thank you guys for sharing that. I've been lucky in, I guess, the regard where I haven't had anything too severe or where I really felt super uncomfortable. I have two great managers who really support kind of women in tech, and their greater team in general supports women. And so I have a VP in from Germany, and we were supposed to do something tonight, and I was kind of afraid at first to ask, like, oh, can I come to this conference? But I was like, nope, I'm just going to ask because I'm really excited. And I told them, and I said, hey, would it be okay if I went to this conference? You know, I know Stefan is in from Germany. He doesn't come very often. If I can't go, no worries. And they both said, like, he said, you know, I talked to Stefan. He said, no, this is way more important. And that to me says something. And the fact that previously I was interested in kind of a women in data science conference that SAP had. And, you know, you have to take a day off of work. And I was like, I'm not going to ask. And he actually suggested it. So I was happy that I really feel supported by my manager, both of my managers, and they're very supportive of me and they want to help me develop. I guess maybe where I've had difficulties as a woman is kind of about how you were saying with shortening things, or it's more of the way we communicate. Maybe we communicate different than men. And sometimes we have a tendency to not to be humble, maybe not to say things a certain way to add fluff, and I think that's where it becomes difficulties about how you portray yourself. So things that I think I'm saying, oh, can I have your thoughts, is me just trying to be collaborative. But from a standpoint of maybe a male colleague or a man, it doesn't make me seem very confident. But I'm like, no, this is, I mean, I think this is an awesome solution, but I'm just trying to be collaborative. And one of the books, actually, that my mentor recommended, she just, you know, suggested I read, it was called, I believe, Same Words, Different Languages. And it kind of talks about how it's easy when you have different cultures to kind of understand that you have to, if I'm working with someone who's from Germany, you kind of are aware that, okay, there's cultural differences. But we don't really realize that there are differences between the way men and women communicate, and it's not often we aren't always as clear. So that for me, I think, is when you kind of see that things that you, like when you say just or sorry a lot, you may think that they're kind of harmless and but they have a bigger impact of how you're perceived. And that's not necessarily how you are, but it's just how you come across.
Thank you so much for sharing your experiences. At this time, I would like to open up the floor to the audience. Are there any other questions that you have for our panelists tonight? Anyone? Any questions? No? Oh, it is registration. Okay.
Get those classes.
Everyone can give our panelists a round of applause. That would be great.